Ah, you'd like that new intro, don't you, fellas? What is going on, everybody? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and thank you guys for joining me for another live stream here on the channel. So I was bored. It's July 3rd, the night before July 4th. I think everybody has, for the most part, has the day off tomorrow. So I figured, what's a better time to come on and do a live show than right now? So I do have a guest backstage who is going to be joining us. We'll bring him on in a little bit, but I want to remind you guys, if you are a person who is comfortable being on screen or just want to talk comments, I have pinned a comment to this video. If you want to jump on, all I ask is that you be respectful to everybody here in the chat, and of course the people who are on the live stream with us, and you have good audio, right? Because there's nothing worse than some bad audio, because that will just totally F up the whole show. So before I get started in bringing one of my guests on, I want to remind you guys, tomorrow, even though it is July 4th, the Hot 10 Comics of the Week breakdown is coming out. It will be out at 7 a.m., so make sure you check that out. A fresh slate of books, so I am totally happy about that. You guys know that. But I also wanted to give a quick shout out to members of the community who are also members of my channel. And not just that, because I'll call everybody who out there who follows my channel, I am going to refer to you guys as the Mighty Militia going forward. So yes, I spent my yesterday early evening coming up with this logo for you guys. I thought it was pretty freaking funny, me with a war helmet on. But either way, you guys are my Mighty Militia, and I appreciate everyone out there who does support the channel. So keep that in mind. We have a slew of topics I want to talk about tonight with my guest and with everybody out there in the chat. So let me bring up the thumbnail, because it has everything that we're going to be talking about plus more. And of course, at the end, like I always do, I'm going to take your questions. So a few things I want to touch on is the CGC new vintage bulk tier. If you guys haven't heard about that, they just released a new vintage bulk tier just for the month of July. I want to talk about a heritage auction, and somebody sent me a comment on one of my videos about heritage that I want to read to you guys, because I thought it was quite interesting. I want to talk about hot comics, because that's what we're all about here on the channel. Hot books, what are they selling for, and the prices they're going for. I also want to touch on making comic books more scarce, and we'll get into that when we do later on in the show, because I do think it's an important thing that's going on right now in the community. And of course, at the end, we'll answer your questions. But not only that, like I said, we'll talk about everything. My guest, I've had him on the channel before, at least one of the guests. And I'm bringing him on right now. Say hello to Ricky from All Sorts of Words. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I forgot to unmute myself. Hey, girl. Hey. Hey, everybody. How are you?
Good. So if you guys don't follow Ricky, you guys are definitely missing out. He has one of the best sense of humors in the comic book YouTube space. So definitely check him out. Definitely a blast. So how are you? What's going on? Anything new?
Everything's new. It's a new day. Any day on this side of the grass.
Yeah.
It's a good day.
So me and Ricky were just talking about before we went live that we are both going to Terrificon this year. So if you're in the East Coast, and I'm trying to there we go. That's what I want to do. If you're on the East Coast, Terrificon is one of the better shows you can definitely go to. It's all about comics. Yes, they have a ton of creators there. Jim Lee is going to be there this year. A ton of actors are going to be there. But not only that, they do have some other stuff that is fun for kids. I ran into a couple of subs last year on Friday, the only day that I'm going, and we just had a blast. Just talking it up, saying hello, meeting everybody, looking for comics, stuff like that. So definitely, if you're on the East Coast, check it out.
All I've heard, all I hear is that it's one of the best cons you can go to in the East Coast.
And I know one of our guys, Rohan over at Absolute Game of Nerds podcast, he's going to be there, and he's flying all the way in from Seattle. So that's how great this show is. So it's
Mike
a big deal.
From Lunch Money Comics, Travis from Comics Limited, Big B McFly, the comic guy, Mon from Mon Comics, Ricky from All Sorts of Words. I heard that guy's
Dan from Dan's X-Men Comics is also going to be there. He's going with Rohan. I heard that as well. So there's a lot of people that if you follow on Instagram or YouTube, it's such a great show. So I'm happy to see people from all over the place in the country is coming to this one, because it is a really fun time. And not to boot, you're in Mohegan Sun, so you can gamble or do whatever. So it is definitely a blast. All right, so let me go ahead. Yeah, let's say hello to everyone in the chat. And like I said, the link, I pinned a comment with the link if you guys want to join us and talk about anything comic related. I have a few topics I want to address, but we're not only limited to that. So let me say hello to Wobbly. What's going on, brother? How are you? Horvath. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name. I'm sorry.
So Fume?
Yeah. He's just here to listen. Jose Gutierrez, what is going on? My voice is Blue Label, but my face is Purple Label for sure.
I mean, you've had constructive surgery.
We have a question already. Do you think people are still doing the CGC slab scam and just really good at resealing? How about you? What do you think, Ricky?
I think that and this is not a pessimistic statement. This is just a human statement. As long as there are systems that allow people to make money, there are going to be people who try to do that system on the sly. There's no way around it. If you can make money off of toll booths, I'm sure there's somebody trying to like scam the toll booth companies. So like, is it? Yes. Is it going to be harder? For sure. Is it ever going to be perfect? No.
There's plenty of bad people out there in the world, so I'm sure some people are still doing it. The people who are originally doing it, I don't think they are. If that answers your question, Danny, what's going on, brother?
I do think though that like the comic community in particular is really good at like if there's a scammer on Instagram, like they will ruin your life.
Absolutely. You saw what happened to this dude, even though CGC ended up settling with the guy, but he ran for cover as soon as they outed him. What's going on, Kenneth Bird? There you go. You have your first compliment. Danny says, Ricky in the house. This guy is hilarious.
Aw, thanks.
You have a great guest. There's another one.
Oh, Blue Collar Dan. That's awesome. That's a good name.
Have you ever been to Baltimore Comic-Con? Have you ever been?
No, I've been to New York. I've been to Toronto. I've been to a bunch of big ones, especially in the East Coast, but no, I haven't been to Baltimore.
I've heard Baltimore is also one of the better cons for actually shopping comics, nothing but comics for the most part. So I've heard it's a good one. I have never been as well. Victor, what's going on, brother? How are you? Glad you can make it. But that's it for the chat for now. We're only got 14 people. I know it's a holiday, but let's start with the vintage thing. I don't know if you heard about this, Ricky. Today, I think it just came out. Let me share it to the screen to you guys. So CGC is actually, for the month of July, if you have books that are under $400 that you want to have graded, they're actually running a special $30 per book. But the catch is that there's there's 15 minimum books you have to send in, which is a cool $450. So in my opinion, it seems like CGC is actually hurting on this tier. It seems like maybe not a lot of people are sending in books that are under $400 in value. Maybe that's why they're doing this. What do you think?
I don't, man. So a sale is, it's almost like a sign of desperation, especially with CGC for years and months in those that made up those years was just like ratcheting up the price. It didn't feel like every other month they were ratcheting up the price.
Yeah, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I'm getting my years confused.
Yeah, it was like they were constantly going up and up and up because they became the de facto standard for like graded books. And so this is a sign that maybe they saw some, if the price correcting is affecting the value of these big keys, it only stands to reason that the price correcting is affecting the sale of bags and boards and everything down the list. And so, I mean, I don't think they're hurting, but I definitely think they probably saw a downtick for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad deal. I mean, if you have a $400 comic that you want to have graded, and to me personally, I'm not really grading anything. You guys know that, but I don't really want to send in books unless they have meet of a minimum, probably like $1,000. Just as me personally, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to spend $450 to send 15 books in, but that's just me. I know 100 million people out there like to send their books in. So I want to hear from anyone in the chat. Do you send those dollar amount of books in? You can see on the screen the books they have pictured, First Sentinels. I don't know what issue Batman it is or Detective Comics. I can't tell from the pictures, but they're not massive keys, so they're not worth a ton of money. They are keys, though. So I want to hear from everyone out there in the chat. Do you send in $400 comics to be graded? Do you plan on using this service if it's discounted? I don't know. I think they get most of their money from either the modern tier or that high value tier. So I just wanted to touch on this because I thought it was an odd thing because there really was no announcement other than putting this up on their site. At least I didn't see any. And I know Spiegelhaus already touched on this. So I'd like to hear what everybody's comments are.
So I will say I have a vested interest in this discussion because, as you know, I'm like really into like the weird and the indie and the like, what even is that kind of book? That's what attracts me to something like, oh, is it rare and no one knows what it is? I want to buy it. So like, I don't know how CGC handles books that like don't really show up. So like if I send in a book, would it behoove them to say, ooh, that's $1,000 book so that they can hit me with a higher price as
Yeah.
opposed to me sending it in and them being like, well, there's not much data. So I don't know, $20.
Yeah. I don't, it's funny because somebody else made the comment about, and I know other people do this, they try to sneak higher dollar books in that tier. Like if you have $400 max value, they'll try to sneak a $650 book in there just to kind of get away and pay less of a price. So, it works both ways though. Cause like you said, CGC can turn around and say, oh, hey, I'm going to upcharge you for this because it's worth more than that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because it's we hinge so much of this hobby on this third party and like what they say, and
Yeah, I know.
like who the hell is they?
Yeah, I agree 100%. A lot of people, and excuse me, because I forgot to send this thing to the computer so I can actually show it to you guys. But I agree. Like, there's too much vested interest on what they say as opposed to the collective, in my opinion. I agree with you 100% on that. Here we go. He said when Danny says, when I first heard, I'm thinking money grab. I think the submission count has gone down since the scam and scandal. They have to find a way to get money flowing. Yeah. So, but if they only did it with the one tier, that makes me think like, well, then why not do that with some of the other tiers? Did they not want to reduce those? I don't know. So I thought that at first, but if they were really trying to get more books in on all tiers, I think they would have lowered it. They would have done that on across the board and not just on the one bulk tier. And of course, that's the kicker, right?
I would have rather have seen them do like a like if you really want to promote like, okay, we want to get 15 books in, just say like, okay, send in 10, get 2 free. And then they have to be of the same tier, but send in 10, get 2 free. So people send in their modern books, they feel like they got something for free. Even though their prices are still ridiculous and it's a silly business model, but I mean, I still use CGC for the big books for buying because at least I can verify that the book is authentic and it's complete. Someone has, it's an approximate grade. Like I'm paying for roughly a 4.0. It could have been a 5.0 on a good day or a 3.0 on a bad day. But so I use CGC as in I buy CGC, but I've never submitted to CGC.
That's the thing. I think you just touched on it. Like, I think a lot of people, they're not looking to buy a grade. Some people are, but I think they're looking to buy peace of mind, right? You're looking to make sure, like you just said, that they're not missing pieces, that there's no restoration, stuff like that. I personally don't care about the grades of books that I buy. I just care about the books themselves. Obviously, I try to buy stuff that's not restored, depending on the era of book. But I think that's what they're there for. The grade shit has gotten really out of control now, but that's a whole discussion for something else. He's like, look at Signature Series. Everybody and their mom is scheduled for signing. I know, and a lot of the artists, I hate to say it, but they're newer artists. They're not guys who were around when I was growing up for the most part.
And then for the signed books, like totally off topic. I don't want anybody writing on my books. Don't write on my books. So I don't get my books signed.
Not even signatures.
I don't get books signed at conventions. I'll get you to sign my sketchbook. I've had writers sign my sketchbook. That's fine. I don't want your signature on my book. And I believe in my heart that if CGC had like any sort of authenticity to it, they would label every signature like a purple label. Like because you're augmenting the book. You're altering what the book is. So you should have some sort of qualifier saying it has been altered. I mean, they put purple labels on everything for everything. So why not this?
Yeah, I get it. To me, they would never sell a book then. That's the whole thing. Like, it's a way of them making money is those beautiful yellow labels. I'm a sucker too, because I would say 2/3 of my slabs, and maybe I have 10 to 15 slabs. That's it in my collection. 2/3 are Signature Series books, or else I would rather just have them raw. But yeah, like I said, the whole grading thing is a whole different conversation. There's already people in the chat talking about 9.9s and 10s, and like I said, that's for another. I shouldn't say that's for another day. It's maybe at the end we can talk about that if somebody wants to touch on it. But I want to share with you guys something that I got on one of my videos that I couldn't, not that I couldn't believe it, but it struck me as like, wow. And I think this person had commented on one of my other videos, and I just want to move it out of the way. So we all saw that Heritage auction with the Detective Comics 27 getting annihilated, losing roughly half its value in under a year. But listen to what this person had to say. He said, Heritage allows their employees to bid in their auctions, which is legal in Texas. There was an ugly shill bidding lawsuit against Heritage from a former employee who blew the whistle on their business practices about 15 years ago. After placing a bid, Heritage will advise you to bid your max early to avoid being outbid. I did this years ago and won a book just under my max amount, to which I felt lucky. Then it happened again, to which I felt lucky again. But when it happens a third time, I got suspicious. When the lawsuit broke out, it explained everything. I now only bid on the floor session day. I'm sorry. I now only bid on the floor session day to win the book at a legit price. Is this what happened to the Tech 27? The buyer originally paid over 1 million. He get bid up by employees who were interested. It happened to me 3 times before. I caught on, and it can happen to a Tech 27 buyer. So I need everybody's comments. Do you think that that is what happened to this book? I mean, that somebody just put their max bid in and that was it, and then there were no other buyers and there was no shill bidding, and they think that the first time around there was shill bidding going on to get it to 1 million? What do you think?
Again, I mean, we just talked about it a second ago. If there is an opportunity to make money in a less than savory way in an industry that makes money in a less than savory way, there's always going to be bad faith actors, especially when you're something like Heritage. You'd have to be extra careful because like they literally have their hands on all the scales. They get the books, they sell the books. There have been many stories about a guy puts his book up for sale, like the owner of Heritage puts his own private book up for sale, and when it's not selling, he then has someone he knows bid on it. So no money ever exchanges hands. The book never leaves his possession. The book gets sold for $20,000, and then he takes that book and then puts it on eBay or whatever. So like you can inflate the prices of your own book. It's just like the buyer's premium itself. I don't understand why anybody would buy.
That was my next question to you, because not only does what we see happening, what this person's talking about, possible shill bidding, but now all of a sudden you got to pay 20% buyer's premium that the person has to pay, which does affect the sales price of the book, right? Because that buyer's premium goes to Heritage. It doesn't get to the person who actually owns the book. So I'm going to ask, why would someone list a book, an expensive book, on Heritage, knowing that 20% at least is not going into your pocket, it's going into Heritage's? Makes no sense to me.
No, actually, so I have an example. We were talking about it before the show. It's coincidental that I have it on me. I think it was like 2021. Action Comics in 252 for Supergirl. This was like I think the book in question was like a 6.0. A 6.0 of this book, no more than maybe like $5,500, $6,000, like maybe about 1,000 to grade point, even at the time during the comic boom. And there was a record sale of like $25,000 somebody paid, and it was just like the whole of the internet was like, there's no way I can rationalize that someone who is in the market for a book like this doesn't know what eBay is and didn't see the fact that the book is literally like 66% cheaper on eBay in the same grade. I don't understand it. Things like that tip me off to malfeasance more than anything else.
It boggles my mind that, especially on a book like a Tech 27, that, all right, the person bought the book from Heritage for $1 million, whatever it was, and now a year later he wants to sell it. How does he think he's going to make profit on that book? I mean, that makes no sense to me. Like, I don't understand. And then on top of it, now he's got to realize he's got to pay 20% to Heritage off whatever the sales price is. And when he bought it, he had to pay 20% to Heritage just to buy the book. So from the outside, that 20% goes to the sales price of the book, but it really is different if you're buying or selling the book. So I don't know if people understand that. Paulie's got a good thing. He said, it wouldn't surprise me. This happened to me twice on Heritage auctions. I won. Couldn't make the live auction, so put my highest bid. Came back to see I won it for my highest bid. I've done that a couple of times as well, but I never end up winning the book. It always goes to the live sale and I get demolished. So
that happened. That's interesting because I never made the connection. But Wolf's Den Comics, have you seen them?
Mm-hmm.
So they have a friend of theirs who bought an AF-15, and he said, I made my bid and I forgot about it. And then like a couple weeks go by, and then they say, hey, you won. And I'm like, and he's like, wow, I didn't even realize it. And he felt so happy. But I'm thinking to myself that, like, did he just put max bid and walk away? Nobody else bid? and then all of a sudden they're charging him the 29,000 or whatever he paid.
Yeah, I mean, it's insanity. It's insanity. But just on a side note, you see that Action Comics 252? I want to give you a heads up. That book is on the Hot 10 Comics of the Week breakdown this week. So that's a really hot book right now. So
You know what? From Charlton Heston said, "From my cold, dead hands."
there you go.
This is not. I'll be buried with that King Tut style.
There was some insane sale too. It was like almost $22,000 this week. So that bodes well.
Yeah, I mean, I anticipate when what's his name, when James Gunn unfucks DC Comics and makes the movies like as high quality as they should be, deserving of the brand. I can see my book that I spent $2,400 on being in the sixes, somewhere in there.
I agree. I always talk about Silver Age DC, how like there's some undervalued stuff, but there's not a crazy amount of Silver Age DC that I want to own. That's one of them. But I got to tell you, from what I've seen, the pictures of Superman, it actually looks really good. The one thing I don't like is the collar on the suit. But other than that, I'm 100% fine with everything that's going on. The story looks great. Seems to be a throwback to how Superman is actually supposed to be, very lighthearted and kind. And that's the way it should be. So he's on the right track, 100%.
So it seems like I'm going off on a tangent. I promise I'm not. A couple months ago, my mother-in-law was sleeping over, and she said she's a Tom Holland fan, but she doesn't, you know what I mean? She hasn't seen any of his movies, but she's a fan of how cute and young he is. So she was like, I'd never seen Spider-Man. And Helen was like, Spider-Man, my wife, she's like, Spider-Man was actually really good, Homecoming. So like, you should watch it. She's like, let's watch it tonight. Cool, whatever, I'm down. So we're watching the movie, and my wife goes, when are they going to like get into his origin? And she had forgotten that like Homecoming didn't bother with an origin, because the story of Spider-Man. Everybody does. So they skipped it and they went right to it. Everything I'm seeing on the set of this movie gives me the impression that they're like, look, we know Dying Star, Guy on the Planet, the Kent family. We can go visit them if we want, but like, we don't need to see Krypton explode again.
Yeah.
So let it happen off screen. Let our imaginations imagine how terrible it was through Superman telling us a story. And the fact that they're throwing in like today, there was a photo of Guy Gardner, and on his chest, you can see the emblem that says JL. So that means we're immediately diving into a world where it's not Superman's the only hero and he's getting introduced. It's the Justice League exists, and like, what part does he play? I'm so curious.
I gotta be honest, it's good, but I'm sure they'll throw back some scenes he'll have flashback to something at some point, so people get a glimpse into his, how he came to be. There's no doubt, because James Gunn is a very, very good storyteller. So all his movies are very well read and viewed. So it's not like there's missing pieces. He's a great storyteller no matter what. So I imagine it's going to be very good. But let's get to the next topic, so we're not keeping people guessing, because I want to get to everybody's questions, and I know you have stuff you want to talk about as well. So I want to talk about hot comics, because especially the hottest comic right now. So I'm going to ask everyone out there in the chat, and I'm going to see if anybody gets the one I'm thinking of. And I'm going to ask you, Ricky, because you're here as well, that what is the hottest comic book out there right now? What do you see that as soon as it comes on Instagram, it sells, on eBay selling, on live sales selling, it shows? In your opinion, everyone out there, what is the hottest comic book out there right now? So, and at the end, I'll tell you what I think it is. And I think I think I'm right, but I want to hear what everybody thinks.
Sale wise, or like what everybody's talking about?
What everybody is like buying, because everybody's asking for the book. As soon as it goes up for sale, it's gone within seconds. That's what I mean.
Oh man. I mean, like if it was a couple weeks ago, I would have comfortably said Ultimate Spider-Man, but I feel like everybody's over that already.
Any inkling? What do you think? Chat,
Ultimate Spider-Man.
There you go. We have a Doom 1 as well. But there's just one book that every time I see somebody listed on IG for sale, I'm talking about gone in 30 seconds. That's how fast people are claiming this book. When I'm on a live sale,
give us a hint with the price. Like, what is the price range?
$300 to $1,000. And I'll even tell you, it's a Bronze Age book. Milk and Cheese #1. There you go, brother. We have a New Mutants 98. Now that I've seen that one sitting for quite a while now. Somebody got a screaming deal at $9.75 on Elite, but Here you go, Wolverine Unlimited series. So yes, if you watch the Hot 10 Comics of the Week breakdown, you would say that the book is ridiculously hot. But I always see people sitting on that book when I'm watching it on Instagram. But we have another.
I think Dan's from Dan's X-Men Comics. I think he has like 6 of them. Like he's like collecting them.
The great cover. Don't get me wrong, and it's definitely a book you should own. But at the same time, like every time I see this book, it's like it's gone in seconds. It's claim. Do you have this? Oh, okay.
Okay. The only thing I can think of, and this is just because I have survivor bias because I've gotten it and unloaded it twice, was House of Secrets 92.
So I was going to say that's close because everybody is right on with that book as well. But I think the price for that book is a little higher. So everybody asked for it 100%. But the book I'm thinking of, and I'm just going to unleash it, is Batman 227. Every time someone has a copy of that book, whether it's Ali Collectibles, Elite Comics 11, Grails, Diamond Comic Club, Newsstand Collector on his live sales, Elite Comics 11 on live sales, it is gone within seconds. Gone. It's crazy to me that everybody is looking for this book. And it's a great book. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking the book at all. I love the book. I own the book. It's just like, I can't believe how many people are looking for that book right now. And I'm going to ask everybody out there why. It's like, this book has been around forever. And now all of a sudden people are just going crazy for that. Do you have an inkling as to why?
I mean,
I have a theory, but go ahead.
I mean, it's Batman. It's Batman. It's one of Batman's more. I'm sorry. I'm just doing. There we go. What is that? There we go. I had to click a button. It's Batman. It's Batman and Spider-Man. They're just always in season. And it's one of Batman's most iconic covers, to the point where I think people see that cover, the 227, and they forget that it's an homage. And like, there are people that see the Golden Age one and they still have more fondness for 227.
Yeah.
It's almost like the homage is more important now to that image than the original image it's referencing, which is kind of fascinating. I don't know if I really have an answer. What do you think?
I just think mainly because it is a classic cover now. It's done by one of the greatest Batman artists there is, who is now no longer with us. But also, and I've said this a lot on my channel, is that $400 to $600 range for buying books, it seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of collectors, including myself. Like, I think a lot of collectors feel comfortable paying that kind of money for a book, knowing of the things I just said, that it's a major character, it's a classic cover. It's done by one of the best artists out there who's no longer with us. And you add all those things into it. It's just, because of the price is so fair and so, attainable to a lot of people, that they're all looking for it. So that's my assumption. I mean, I love the book. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I just can't believe how fast people are claiming the book. It's like,
I have a personal reason why I believe, and I have no evidence to this. Yeah. I mean, what do you think for a 9.2?
I don't know. I knew someone who owned like a 9.4 and it was crazy money. So to me, I just want to own the book. I don't think it's necessary to get the highest grade possible. Just own the book. I actually said this recently. Oh, I apologize. I didn't say this recently. It's on tomorrow's video, so it's coming out. And actually, the next thing we're going to talk about is, and it leads right into this. I don't want to give it away, but I want that book signed by Neil Adams, because the yellows that CGC has at the top of the label match great with the yellows in the book. And it's a great thing to get Neil Adams' signature on. But say what you're going to say, and then we'll get into that.
So, okay. I have a weird theory as to why our generation. So I'm 38. You're close in age.
I'm a lot older. Look at all this fucking white hair, bro.
Well, you don't look it. But okay, this age range, like born in late 70s through 85, somewhere in there.
Yes.
I have a very specific reason why I believe our generation is specifically primed to being okay in the $400 to $600 range, and it's video games. And the reason why I say that is because since we were children, we have been primed to understand that video game consoles are between $300 and $500. And as we age, even today, if you want a PlayStation 5, as opposed to when I had an Atari when I was a kid, it was $300 to $500. And despite the market going this way and despite inflation doing whatever it is, that seems to be the sweet spot. So we've been, every couple of years, we get our new video game consoles and we rationalize how much this thing is worth in this price range. And so then when something else comes in that we care about and says, I fit right into that price range, it doesn't feel foreign and weird. Some people have never paid $1,000 for a comic book, but they've paid $500 for a video game. So when you tell them you can't get that $1,000 version, but you can get the 500 version, all of a sudden it like clicks in that meat in our brain that already has space for it. I know that there's no data for that, but I personally believe it's something that we're all used to paying that specific amount for, and so we're kind of a little primed for it.
I think that's a great analogy. I never even thought about that, but you're right. Like anytime a new console comes out, like for me, I had a PS2, a PS3, a PS4, a PS5. It's all the same price, about $300 to $500.
Yep.
Very
and
good.
So when something comes along and says, "Hey, I'm $400," you're like, "Oh wow, it's a PlayStation money," which means you've paid that type of money before. If you go, "Oh, that's a PlayStation money," so like it has a space in your brain for that to be a rational decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great analogy because I didn't even think of that. That you're very accustomed to doing it, so that price amount is comforting. So 100%, very good. I like that. See, look at the cool stuff you're getting on this channel with my guests here. I want to take a moment to remind you guys that if you want to jump on the, I put the link in the chat. I know a lot of people are shy, but speaking of Atari, by the way, my wife got me, I don't know what it's called. It's the Atari 2600, like the original, but it's like a redone version, a newer one. It actually plays the old vintage games. If you still have Atari vintage games, it plays those. If you like that stuff, it's really cool.
I hope
Shout
you're
out to
into
my
it
wife.
because Atari's
Yeah.
dirt cheap. Like
Yeah.
like the cartridges, they're dirt cheap.
Yeah, that's the point. So that's, I can sit there and play Pitfall for 3 hours. But shout out to my wife for that one. So leading into what I wanted to talk about was we talked about Batman 227. I want to get that book signed by Neil Adams is because we talk about common books, and I call common books any books that are from Bronze Age to newer. They're all common. There's a ton of copies out there of those books. Whenever I do an eBay sales video or an Instagram sales video, you see all the copies that sell in certain grade levels. They're all like 50 to 60 in every grade for a year, just a lot. There's a lot of copies out there. So to me, I know you said before you don't like signatures, but I like to narrow that stuff down. I like to narrow the amount of copies in a grade by buying either a JSA authenticated signature series book or witness signature book, because it kind of narrows that down a bit. So where it's like certain people like to buy newsstands of books, some people like to buy Mark Jewelers, which is even rare. Me, I just want to narrow it down to a creator of that book signing it, and some of the books have a lot, like X-Men 101 with Chris Claremont. There's a ton of copies out there, but like certain books like the 251 Batman, Neil Adams, 227, it really does narrow it down a bit, and I think that's many people who like signature series, that could be a way to do it. What do you think?
You're looking for ways, and I'm rephrasing it because I'm trying to I want to make sure I understand. You're looking for ways to make a commodity that is already rare even rarer.
Well, in this case, they're probably not rare. You're looking to make books that aren't scarce a little more scarce.
Okay, so you want to target signatures that are less common?
I want to target books that are very common, that have signatures which make them less common. Having like I'll give an example, a Batman 227 and a 5.0 signed by Neil Adams, where a regular 5.0 might have 1,000 on the census, but a 5.0 signed by Neil Adams may only have 50.
See, if you want to do that, I think there's a way of doing that where it's way cheaper and that can make you a lot more money.
Okay.
Let me here. I've got a physical example here. Here, pull up a Khalid's question and start on that while I pull this book out to get my example.
All right, so we are going to address questions. I'm going to actually, after we talk about this, I'm going to give Ricky the floor to talk about anything he wants to, and then we're going to answer any questions you have. So please put all your questions in the comments. We're going to be here till about 8:30 or so, maybe a little longer, depending how many questions we have. But it says, do you guys think X-Men 3 into 3.5 is a good long-term investment purchase?
The only reason why I would say no, and it has nothing to do with the market, with money, with nothing. I have never, ever, not once, never met an X-Men fan who likes the Blob.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I've never met one. Although now that I'm saying that, the only reason why I would counterpoint myself and say yes, it is a good investment is because everyone's going after X-Men 1, and then when all the X-Men 1s dry up at a reasonable price, they move on to the second appearance. And then when all the number 2s dries up at a reasonable price, they move to the third. I think that kind of peters off and ends once you hit to 5. 5 seems to be a magic number for the market for some reason. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, and it's depreciating along the way. But like long term, like if you want to hold on to this book until you're 80, yeah, it'll be pretty cool. It's a third appearance of the X-Men. It's a notable X-Men villain. But like, there's got to be better you can spend your money on.
I agree. I have to ask why are we focusing on X-Men 3? I get X-Men 1 is a lot more money, even X-Men 2. And even though I tell people I don't want to spend a lot of money on second appearance books, and I know it's a big second appearance, but it's still too expensive for me. I'd rather save and try to get a 1, even if it's a destroyed 0.5. I'd rather have that. I would say go to X-Men 4, because not only is X-Men 4 the first Scarlet Witch, first Quicksilver, but it's also the second appearance of Magneto. That is a better book that I'd rather spend my money on. You're probably going to spend the same amount of money on a lower grade copy. That's what I would do. If you're attached to the blob and you just want to own the book, be my guest. But if I was going to pick one and I couldn't do 1, I would go to 4. That's the better book in my opinion.
So here's my counterpoint. Okay, so a 4.0 market trends on Go Collectors puts it at like a 600. Let's just say you have a beautiful 3.5, right? A beautiful 3.5, and you're at that like $525 to $600 sweet spot. Your price is trending above what the book is valued at, right? Let's just pretend. Get a Hulk 180. Get a Hulk 180. Get a Hulk 180 raw. Now you have the first true appearance of Wolverine, because everybody goes after 181 because it's the first fight and it's the most iconic cover of Wolverine, but it's not his first appearance. So like everybody in America right now is sleeping, just like full blown snoring and Z's above their head on 180. And I like literally can't fathom it. So like if you're an X-Men fan and you don't have that book, I think you might actually be crazy.
So maybe you're a huge X-Men fan and you just were collecting X-Men books. That's why I asked what's the attraction to X-Men 3 first, because maybe that's has some type of sentimental value to. Yeah. That's
maybe
why
he's a big My 600 Pound Life fan.
Yeah.
Huge fan. Okay, so the thing that you were saying earlier about like finding books that are uncommonly signed, right? And then like bumping them up with signatures, making them more valuable. In 25 years, when we've all been killed in World War III, in the nuclear wasteland, this video is going to be like played on old irradiated cell phones.
Hopefully there's internet back when that happens. But go ahead.
But in that future, we will see a time when 90s schlock is rare. And right now, as in now, I'm in my own buying. I'm seeing books from the 90s, like those 90s comics, becoming exceedingly rare. And there are variants of them that you don't see for anything less than a couple $100. And
what can you give me examples? Because I don't see any. Okay, I was gonna say I don't see any 90s comic unless it's not a Marvel or DC book. But go ahead.
I'll show it to you. Here's a 90s book from Image. This is Danger Girl #1, the disco variant. They only made 5,000 copies of this. It's a shitty 90s chromium cover that you do not see. You don't find it. You won't find this in dollar bins. You won't find it. It's difficult to get in high grade. If you go on eBay right now, I challenge you, go on eBay right now. I bought the floor out by buying this one for like $85, and then everything else is graded and everything else starts at 200 and then goes up from there. So like Image, Danger Girl, so J. Scott Campbell.
Okay, so that's what I did say. It definitely wasn't a Marvel or DC book, because those books are crazy printed.
Yeah, so these books were crazy printed, but there are variants of them that just like people don't connect with. And so like J. Scott Campbell is very much an artist that you can still get a hold of. This book, I've never seen one for sale that's signature series. So it's kind of the strategy that you're talking about of like, target a 90s book that it's not on anybody's radar. You can get it for under $100. Bring it to J. Scott Campbell, get him to sign it, and all of a sudden you've got yourself like a 101.
See, I agree with you. My only my only thought to that was, do you have an attachment to that character?
I have an attachment to it in that it's a book that my mother would have never let me bring into the house.
Okay, then.
And so now that I'm an adult with a wife that is way too cool for me, I can buy my Lady Deaths, my Vampirellas, my Dawns, and no one's ashamed of my boner anymore.
So yeah, you get the drift though, right? I mean, yeah, take a book that you want. If you want a book, certain book. So in this case, Ricky wants Danger Girls, but I never heard a book, but I agree with that. The cover's awesome, and I love hot chicks. So there you go. But yeah, if you want a book, all I'm saying, if it's a common book and you want to do something to maybe make it more desirable, and the fact that, all right, there's less copies if I get a signed copy. That's all I'm talking about. But yes, that is a cool book, dude.
Yeah, you can totally edit. These 90s books that like for example, Garth Ennis still does conventions, right? All the time. He wrote The Darkness. You remember The Darkness from the 90s?
Yeah.
He wrote The Darkness. And that's I can't remember the name of the artist. I always forget. But the two of them still do conventions, and it's just not a book that people get signed. But it's a book that is dying in dollar bins because everybody flips past it. Nobody cares. And then all of a sudden that copy's too shitty. Nobody wants it anymore. So getting these books in high grade and then getting them signed, I think that's a really cool strategy with what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's about you owning the book first. If you want to own a book, a certain book, great. If you think it's a common book and maybe, hey, I should go after something bigger, try going after a signed copy, especially a book like, I know Neil Adams signed a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong, a lot of stuff, but go check out the census and see what's there. And then you could kind of do your research and see if that's worth it for you to go ahead and do that or not. But any more books that are rare like that you want to show us?
Oh man, I've got two books here. One of them is going to be something that your audience can go flood eBay and take them right now because nobody's listening to me. And then another one is exceedingly psychotically rare. To the point where there's only one other copy on eBay right now for $300, and it's a piece of genuine Americana. So this is exciting. I haven't showed this on my channel or anywhere. Here's the one that you yourself, Lawrence, recommend. Please go to eBay and buy these. They're $40 books right now, in good grade, and they're just like nobody knows what they are. Nobody's talking about them, so I'm glad to give you the exclusive. Mad Magazine, number 60 from 1961. It's a cool, fun cover where they're trying to like pick on the fact that the election is happening with Kennedy and Nixon. And so on one side, they're saying, I'm with Jack. I've always been here with you. And then when you flip the book over, it's the same thing. But he's saying,
look at that.
I like Dick.
They should redo that for now's election.
I'm saying, and it's really funny. But the reason why, so this book I paid $20 for this book. You can get really, really high grade copies of this book for like $40 to $50. The reason why this book is significant is because this is the first appearance of Spy versus Spy.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Nobody knows that.
I love that back in the day, Spy versus Spy.
So Proheus was an artist. This is actually, it's spy code. It's Morse code for him saying, my name is Proheus and I'm the author of this book. He was a Cuban artist, and he would do like comic strips in Cuba. He did some unflattering images of Fidel Castro in the 60s. And so Fidel Castro was saying that he was a spy for the United States government and we should get rid of him. And so he goes, shit. And he took his family and he ran to the United States and he got a job at Mad Magazine. And so for the rest of his life, he kind of made this joke about Fidel Castro called me a spy and ran me out of my country. So I went to the United States and did cartoons about spies, and now I'm rich. Thanks, Fidel.
That's very cool. 60, you said the issue was, right?
Issue 60, 1961. I'm telling you right now, before anybody else sees this, go on eBay and you can get it. And it's literally high grade. You'll pay $50, and it is a huge piece of history. Everybody knows Spy versus Spy.
Let me ask you a question. Are there any graded on the eBay?
I know there are some, but like The reason why I don't pimp grading of this book
No,
is that like that reveal of like, oh, you
because
don't
you
know what
want to
this
see
is?
it. But
Bang.
I want to know if they note it on the label is that's the first
Oh,
appearance of
that's
Spyverse.
interesting. Yeah, I don't
That's what
know.
I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know
Because
because I went
that
on Key Collector and they didn't have it. They had the other keys in Mad, but they didn't identify this as like a thing.
you can actually go on Key Collector and like report it. This is the first appearance, and then they'll update it.
Or I can just give it to your audience and they can get
Yes,
the they can
for the
scoop
whole
it up.
the whole 22 people, the real fans of the channel here, they're hanging with us tonight.
Yo,
But
they've
yes,
probably spent more on shittier keys.
I agree. That is very fascinating. I did not know that. Anything else that you want to
So
information you want to drop on us that we should know?
This is the weird one, and this is one that you guys can keep your eyes out. And once again, I will be doing something like this on my own channel, I'm sure. But like, I'll give the exclusive here just because, you know, I love Lawrence and I want him to keep coming back and want him to pick up my calls when I call late at night.
Yeah.
So in 1939, we're going way, way back. 1939, Montgomery Ward, the department store, at the time, they were sending off catalogs. So a little bit of history is Aaron Ward was a man that noticed that farmers in the Midwest in the 20s and 30s didn't have access to new goods. There weren't stores out there. So farmers would have to like get together, get in a car, drive to the city, buy their toaster, and then go home. There was no way to get them goods. Amazon and the internet didn't exist, folks. It was the 30s. So Aaron Ward came up with an idea of a catalog, and the first one was literally one page, and he would hand it out to farmers and say, tell me what you want, and then I'll put it on a train and it'll show up in your town. And that was his business for Montgomery Ward. So what began as a single page with a bunch of nonsense was evolved into a 4-pound what is it called, like almost like a phone book. It was so thick that you could order all this stuff, kind of like what we remember as kids, like looking through video games and toys. That's where it began, Montgomery Ward. So in 1933 they sent off a coloring book for the holiday version. So it's like here's all the toys and everything for everybody, but also here's a coloring book for kids. It went over like gangbusters. So in 1939 they approached an artist, a copywriter that worked at Montgomery Ward, and said, we want you to do a funny animal book. Make a children's book for this 1939 Christmas catalog. We'll send it off and then kids can have a free gift. So the man sat down and he wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So this is from 1939. This is the first appearance anywhere on Earth of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, written by Robert May in 1939. Now, that's cool enough. That's just cool enough. The fact that you can own a piece of like human history like that.
That is
like,
history, man. Wow. That's
crazy. Americana.
It is. Doesn't get much more Americana than that.
I'm saying, but what makes this extra interesting, and this is the Mighty Comics and Collectibles flavor that you come here for, folks. If you're looking for this book went over like gangbusters. They started printing out the catalogs and sending them out in November, and families were calling in and saying, no, we want more for our other kids and grandkids because this book is so great. So they immediately had to do a second print in the same holiday season where this book came out. However, there's an interesting modifier in the story that tells what's a first print and everything after. In this first print is a part in the story where Santa Claus is flying through the sky, you know, as he is wont to do. And he almost gets hit by a plane. Damn it, where is it? Give me a second, folks. We're doing this live. I should put a sticky note in here for next time. So
again, guys, drop your questions in the chat, guys, because after Ricky's done here, we're definitely going to take some questions. But go ahead.
So Santa Claus almost gets hit by a plane, and here we go. And it's identified. Oh God! Don't put tapes on your books, kids. Okay, we didn't damage it. So Santa almost gets hit by a plane, and it says specifically a tri-motored plane. Now, the guy who was running Montgomery Ward at the time, this wasn't Aaron Ward. The guy who was running it at the time that this book was written didn't believe in the story. and he was a micromanager. And so the running theory, because we don't know, it was the 30s and it was intercompany nonsense. But the theory goes that the guy who was running the company said, that's an outdated plane. There are new planes now that have 4 motors. So for every other printing, they changed the drawing of the plane to have 4 motors, and they would say he almost got hit by a 4-motored plane. So if you're looking for a first edition, you want the identifier here in the indicia. It's a very thin indicia that says 1939. But you also want that image where it says a tri-motored plane. If it says anything else other than a tri-motored plane, you're looking at one of the dozens of reprints that they made. They reprinted it all the way up to like 1996.
How did you find out about that? That's what I want to know.
Because I like reading and I like to know like who wrote stuff. And so sometimes when I think about like what I do is like if I'm humming a song or I think about like a turn of phrase, I want to know like where did that come from? And so I do a little bit of investigation. And so one time I was just like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, where did this come from? Oh, did you know it was written in 1939? Oh, did you know that it was a Montgomery Ward giveaway to children? Oh, did you know there's 1 copy on eBay? Yes, please. And so I reached out to the seller. He was selling it for like 160. I reached out to him and I said, hey, can you tell me, because there's no picture of the plane, can you tell me if it says 3 motors or 4 motors? And he wrote back, why do you want to know? And I was very honest. I was like, well, first print is 3 and everything after. And I gave him a little lesson. And so he said, oh, thank you for the information. I appreciate that. And he knocked off $40 and then sent me an offer.
I thought you were going to say he raised it to 300.
No, he knocked it off. So now the only other copy you can get on eBay that you can verify, you can see the photos and it says tri-motored plane is $300. So if you want to be in on the ground floor of owning an actual piece of American history, it's going to cost you $300, but it is out there. And then after that $300 one is gone, there was a graded copy I saw that sold, and it did say on the CGC notes, first appearance of Rudolph anywhere. But I did see a CGC copy. I think it was like a 5.0 or something go for like $800. So they're going fast, folks.
That's amazing. So like I said, guys, if you're not sub to Ricky, you're missing out because you're getting all types of information. I didn't know any of this stuff. So amazing. But I'm going to have to look up both of those. It's probably going to take me a while. But the one thing about the Rudolph thing is like, if you guys frequent like antique stores or places where they sell comics or books or stuff like that, that's something I would want to look for because I'm not sure anyone else would know this besides Ricky. So now that you have that information, if you're watching this on the rewind or you're here in the chat, like I do frequent antique stores. Unfortunately, I only have like 3 of them near me that have the same stuff. So I go there once in a blue moon. But now that I know this, I'm going to go back there and look for this book.
And it says in the bottom, this book is yours with our compliments. Montgomery Ward wishes you a Merry Christmas. And let me tell you, real talk, because I know you have displays. When it comes to the holiday season and I put up like my DC Superman cover with like Christmas presents and my Harley Quinn one, like tell me this doesn't have a permanent spot on your holiday shelf.
My wife would love that because she's all into the holiday stuff. She does all the decorations here. She would love that.
Yeah, the first appearance of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Very, very cool. See? You learn something new every day, folks. All right. So now it's time for questions. So we're going to take everybody's question. If you have any question for both of us, and it can be anything regarding comics, books, collectibles, we don't care, but we have one question here I'll address right now. It says, you guys think paper quality deserves a bit premium or should it be all equal?
What do you think?
I do. I mean, the older the book and the better the page quality, the more the book should be worth. I'm not going to lie. You're always going to get more for a white page book, no matter what the year is, unless we're talking about modern, then it doesn't really matter because they're not even white pages. They should call it glossy pages or non-glossy pages. But yeah, it definitely matters, especially when we're talking about books like common books, like we talked about before, bronze and up. If you're a common book and you're buying off-white to white, you're always going to have that person who's going to pay more for a white page book. So yes, 100%.
All I care about is brittle. That's like all I care about. Like if it's brittle, then I don't necessarily want it. But like a more yellowy type of book, like wicked off-white. I mean, that's how I grew up. You know what I mean? Even in the 80s, if you lived in the 80s and you went to a flea market and bought comic books, the shit sat out in the sun all day long. And so like I guys, it's only like within the last 10 years that people have been like really crazy about like grade, the defining with CGC 9 point. Nobody cared about this shit a decade ago. So this is still relatively new. So as like a reader and a person who wants to like open up their books and stuff, I definitely want to be able to read it. So the only thing I really care about is like, am I going to break the book if I read it?
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on the book you're looking to buy. Do you care about value? Like Ricky said, if you're buying a book just because you want to read it, you love the character, you just want to know the book, does it really matter? No, absolutely not. If you're financially invested and that's the main reason you're buying the book, then it matters. Here's a great question from JSS Brooklyn. What's going on? Can brittle pages be restored? And I think he means be restored to non-brittle pages. And that's a great question because I have no idea.
It depends on, so if there's water damage that's causing the brittle, then like yeah, but like there are types of brittle where it's the pages are so supremely dry that you can't, like, by reinfusing water into them, you'll actually damage the book more. So brittle isn't brittle. There's different types of brittle. So can you, long answer yes, short answer no.
Yeah, that's a question. I'd love to have somebody who does this as a job come on the channel, answer a bunch of restoration questions because I have a few myself because I have a few restored books that I was thinking about possibly removing some of the restoration, but I know it's very expensive. And I'm also worried that they could destroy the book. And when we're talking about high dollar value books, I really don't want that. So I would love some information. So if anybody watching this channel who does this for a living and knows about restoration and restoration removal or adding restoration, anything, I'd love to have you on. So you could always reach out to me. My description of every video has my email because I'd love to do it. But yeah, he says thank you. He appreciates your answer.
Oh, I appreciate you.
So while we're waiting for other questions, I hope there are other questions, guys and gals out there. Is there anything you're looking for right now? Like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
I'm not gonna lie, and this is something I've had to wrestle with, like intellectually on my own channel a lot. As you can see, some of the things I look for are pretty under the radar. And so a lot of times when I get asked that question, they're like, "Oh, what's the next thing you're looking for?" It's like, if I tell you, I'd have to kill you. Because like I'm looking at, like, right now, real talk, I'm looking at a book. It's currently on eBay for $300. I won't tell you what it is because I'm a piece of shit. It's currently on eBay for $300, and the only other copy is going for about $2,500.
Oh, wow.
I think $300 is a little high for a raw in the condition it's in. So I've already let the guy know, like, hey, I'm not a creep, I'm not a reseller, I'm looking to add this to my permanent collection, but I'd be in for 200. And the guy wrote back and he said, if I'm ready to sell it at 200, you'll be the first person I know. And so if I told you and you were like, oh, wow, that's a huge character, how does nobody know about that? All of a sudden, an audience of a couple thousand people know about it, and then all my competition eats me.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times when I talk about these like really crazy books, it's because like I did the research, I did the legwork, I hunted it down. Here it is. Like my Addams Family stuff. I don't know if you were aware of.
Yeah, you showed me to the last time you were on my channel.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I finished him. I have the Addams Family, Everybody But Morticia. Side note, I don't believe that book exists anymore. It's 1938, same year as Superman, first appearance of Morticia. And it's like, there's no records of it being sold. I've never seen a copy of it in existence. I've been meeting Addams Family collectors and I've never met them. Anyone who has it, I don't think it exists, quite frankly. But again, like, that's a book that's so rare that if I told everybody about it every time I got in front of a microphone, like all of a sudden I'm creating my own competition. And it kind of sucks that like I'm doing all this research and legwork and then I tell people and then they buy the books out from under me. It kind of blows.
So where, besides eBay, is there anywhere else that you look for these rare books?
Abe Books, ABEBOOKS is also, they sell anything book related. So comic books, like they sell comic books, a lot of flyers, old magazines, and like a lot of people don't realize how much of American culture came from things that weren't meant to be like sold like that. Like there weren't fandoms in 1925. So like a lot of these like characters and stories that you might not have heard about like made appearances in like local newspapers and stuff. And so some of them just don't exist. Like I tried to find the first Far Side, but it was in a California newspaper. I believe it was like the LA Sun or something like that, but like in 1970. And that was the first Far Side. And I was like, I want the first Far Side. Doesn't exist. I've scoured the internet, can't find it. And I think it was a newspaper that people threw out.
So he says, dude is funny, hunting down like the first Tony Tiger. But so what he just mentioned was that's part of American history, Tony the Tiger, right? So I mean, like Batman was once, in the 70s or whatever, he was all over the comic strip, I believe. If you guys haven't watched the video that I put out, you guys know I'm a big Spidey fan, and somebody had on eBay, and I'm not going to break it out because it's buried under some stuff here on my desk, but it's an entire collection of the run of Spider-Man newspaper clippings. And the guy put in a huge album, he labeled it up on the front of the album with a beautiful picture of Spider-Man and what it was. The detail that went into this thing, and I did a video a couple years ago when I bought it, is unbelievable. This is one of one. And when I saw the guy, I said, holy shit, I have to buy this because it was like $300. Like this thing is priceless. It's one of one. And he's got every newspaper clipping and he's got it all amazingly put into this beautiful album. And when I got the box, and I have goosebumps now just talking about this on my legs, he included a letter, and I wish I kept the fucking letter. And it said, it was the most beautiful thing I ever read. He's like, basically, I grew up reading this when I was a kid. He was in his 60s or wherever he was now. And he was like, I grew up reading this stuff and I was very, attached to the character Spider-Man, just like I am and a lot of other people are. And he's like, I saved these from when I was growing up and I put them in an album. I can't tell you how much this means to me, doing this, and that someone else who's buying this has the same affliction for the character that I do. And the letter itself was almost as memorable as what he put together, because you could tell that he was really attached to it. And for him to sell it, to me, it really meant something. And like I said, it's one of one. Some people may have like complete clippings like he did, but no one has it in this amazing album and the story that it came from. And if you know me and you watch my channel religiously, this channel is about the history, right? A history about everything that I hold near and dear to me. So when Ricky talks about the stuff that he enjoys picking up, it's because that's what he's about. And it's just, that's what collecting is, right? It's about picking stuff up that you hold near and dear to you from when you're a kid through an adult. It's just, that's why we do it. It's not about the grade. It's not about grading shit. So hearing you talk about it, I hear your passion for this stuff.
So yeah, I mean, you nailed it in that, like, these are books, these are stories, and that's what's important. And it's so fashionable. It's so easy to zero in and fixate on like the money, because the money is a part of it. None of this stuff is free. Like this was like $130 for me, right? That's rent money for a motherfucker. That's a gas bill. So like, I want to reinsert some gratitude into the hobby that like I don't hear a lot about, like just literally appreciating like what you have, being happy with what you have, and not always so addicted to the chase. The chase is really fun. Hunting is really fun. Learning about this stuff for me is really fun. And then buying it and having it in my home as a part of my life is really fun. But like, I kind of want to, be a voice for change in terms of having people refocus on like, why do you love this in the first place? And do you have to get this particular book in this particular grade? Or I don't know. This is very philosophical at this point, but like, yeah, I just want people to care about this stuff as much as I know they do, and not just express it in how much they're willing to swipe their credit card for.
All right. So we have our first question of the night. What's the top 3 Silver Amazing Spider-Man books? If you buy them in any grade, you're still winning. Forget about AF-15. Are you a Spidey guy at all or no?
So you can't be in comic collecting without absorbing most of the big characters through osmosis. Like, you know, you watch a video and like I'll watch one of your top 10s and I'll be like, what the hell is that book? And oh, he'll tell me. I would say probably number one, obviously, like Amazing Spider-Man number one is like, it's just iconic. It's a terrible cover, but number one, first J. Jonah Jameson and Punisher. And then I would do a coin flip between, you know what? I wouldn't do a coin flip. I was going to say Kingpin, but because it's the most famous Spider-Man cover, I believe. Like that Spider-Man No More cover is the most famous.
Yeah.
But I would say that the first Gwen Stacy. I think Gwen Stacy's even eclipsing Mary Jane in terms of like importance of her character.
All right, so he says 129, and 31. So those are your three. Mine, it would be 1. Obviously, it's Spider-Man's second appearance, first in his own title, first J. Jonah, first Chameleon. But to me, I'm going to give it up to his 2 greatest villains, and that's Amazing Spider-Man number 3, first appearance of Doc Ock. In 0.5 grade, that book is nearly $1,000 because that's how popular of a villain he is. He's my favorite Spider-Man villain. So that's the book that, if outside of AF-15 and 1, that's the next book I want to own is 3. And then it's kind of a toss up because you mentioned the 50. That book is, I agree with you, the greatest Silver Age Spider-Man cover there is. I'll exclude AF-15 because it is iconic. 50 is unbelievable. And I call that book the trifecta because of the story, because of the cover, and because of the first appearance of a major character in the Kingpin. But if I had to pick one that I'd say long-term, Green Goblin is Spider-Man's nemesis, and I think he's such an important character, and he keeps coming back, and they keep bringing him back, however ridiculous he is, even in the modern comics. So I would go 1, 3, and 1, 3, and 14.
I think we've moved past him in terms of, like, I don't know, like for a very long time he was Spider-Man's most important villain, but like I don't know, like even just Venom, throw the Venom suit on anybody and have him pick on Spider-Man.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we can go on and on about, you know, Spider-Man villains all day long because that's a topic I can talk about all the time. But like, to me, those are the 3 books. When I got back into collecting, you know, AF-15 was the one I went for first, but those 3 I gave you were the next 3 I went and got. So,
yeah, I mean, man, AF-15. I don't collect Marvel at all, but if that was, I'd probably go for like a 3.0 for like 24,000, something like that.
For what?
For
the
an
AF-15?
Yeah, that's where I'd be.
I have a 2.5, so I mean, the first one I had was my first AF-15 was years ago, but like when I first got back into collecting, I got a 1.5 raw. So I mean, yeah, I got it in a good price though, so it was only like 10 grand back then. So
only like 10 grand.
Only 10 grand back then, but what it is now, what's a 1.5 now?
20, like 15, 16.
It's like 18. I just got my buddy one. A good 1.5 is 18. A crappy one is probably like 15. So like, you know, it is what it is, but that's it.
JSS Brooklyn says
50. Yep. Listen, I can never say no to that book. I have like 3 copies of it. My main copy is an 8.0 signed by Stan Lee and John Romita. And that's what I mean by narrowing down a common book. But I just bought the book because I love the book. And you guys know Romita is my guy. Wait, John says, Ricky, you didn't call me. My phone number is 330. Do you know what that means?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either, John. That's pretty funny.
I wonder if his like it's like stall 330 in like a bathroom, and it's like written in there, and it says like, hey, find me. But yeah, man,
I'm shocked.
Spider-Man's one that I would read.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever read the early stories? I can't read the shit now, but I mean, the Ultimate Spider-Man they said is pretty good, but I can't read the other dribble.
So I've read, actually, what I've read the most. So I have read a lot of them because I torrented, stole a lot of books online, the digital versions. So like that's how I'd use CBR, Comic Book Reader. I download a bunch of those. And the one that I did read a bunch of Spider-Man. I'd probably say maybe the first like 30 issues. They are very clunky.
Yes, of course.
To be kind. But I would say I found a torrent. I still have it. I love it. It was every single appearance of the Hulk from inception to, I think the list ended at like 2011. And I was going through it, and I got up to like, I think like issue 400, like the 400th appearance. And it, like, someone meticulously put these digital issues in order. And so I got pretty high with the Hulk. I hate the Hulk now.
I loved reading the Hulk when I was a kid. Those are like the three things that I read was Spider-Man, Batman, and the Hulk. And then as I got older, I started reading the Punisher, but that's all I read. Like outside of Archie. When I was taking shits back in the day, I would read Archie.
The only Archie book I own 7 Archie books. I own the 1 through 6 of Red Sonja and Vampirella. Meet Betty and Veronica. Terrible. Terrible.
I can imagine.
Terrible. Like irredeemably bad. And then the first appearance of Sabrina, Archie's Madhouse. I got that one.
All right. Yeah, they were just fun. Like you need a break from things. And I think when you're like 13, 14 years old, that's kind of what you flock to. But at least I did. I was just a horny idiot. But what the fuck did I know? Well, I'm shocked that we actually have no questions tonight. So I think we're going to end this thing at an hour and 10 minutes. So, Ricky, I want to thank you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
Oh no, I was just going to say about John. I do remember John sent me on Instagram. He did reach out. He wanted to come on, I think, one of my streams. So yeah, we have some cross pollination. Guys, come sub up my channel. I'm fun, and you should hang out with me.
Yes, guys, I tell you, sub him up. He's, like I said, if you like learning things, 100%. You guys, the 2 times I've had Ricky on my channel, you guys learn stuff, and that's kind of the point. He's hysterical, especially if you guys seen some of the what's the word I want to do? He almost has like short films sometimes within his YouTube videos, and they're absolutely fantastic and very, very creative. And that's what you want, I think, from someone who's supposed to entertain you. And that's really what this is entertainment, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the handsome thing going on, so that's like your thing. That's not a microphone, folks. It's just a big black dick.
Let's not get out of here. We have a YouTube superstar in the house. What's going on, Chris? He said he has a question. He just got here because he's feeding his cats. But what's the question?
Oh, the question is, what did he miss?
He missed
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah, show him that. So that he first appearance of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer ever anywhere. Look it up. Crazy. So
Key Collector does identify it, but not on their app. If you type in Rudolph in their app, it doesn't pull it. But if you Google Key Collector Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, they do identify it, and they do even have the information about the plane in there as well. But the 3-prop plane and the 4-prop plane. So 1939. That's what you missed. It's Christmas in July. We love comics.
So I have a guy in the chat named Niobe Comics. So I'm gonna give him a shout out because I don't know. I'm not familiar, but I guess he's got his own comic book. So check him out, Niobe Comics.
Sick.
Very cool.
Support your small artists.
Well, here we go. Horvath says he subbed you up, but now he wants to know your secrets.
Ask questions about stuff you think you know about.
Yeah.
There's my secret.
I mean, to a point, like we talked about scarcity and we talked about a lot of copies out there. Like if you like owning things that are like one of one, or maybe something that nobody knows about. Like I did not know about that Mad magazine. I did not know about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I didn't know about the last time we were on our channel about Judge Dredd. Let me tell you, when I went to a local show a couple of weeks ago, they had a ton of those British magazines. Dude, he had a stack of them on a table, just like thrown together. I was looking for that issue, dude. He didn't have it, but I was like, I would have never known that if you didn't share it with me.
Yeah, I mean, that's that. So that is my. I was being flippant a moment ago, but that really is my strategy, Horvath. The like, see something that you like, right? See anything that you like. I know this sounds really weird, and I'm picking this off the top of my head, but like, if you drink Mountain Dew, like I like Diet Mountain Dew. I don't like regular Mountain Dew. Too gross.
It's too sweet. Yeah,
too sweet. But Diet Mountain Dew is delicious. I like Mountain Dew. Maybe I start Googling, like, when did Mountain Dew come out? what did the advertisements look like? Who named it? And then all of a sudden you'll find yourself like walking down a rabbit hole, and you'll find out, like, I'm making it up, this isn't true, but like, oh, the guy who invented Mountain Dew used to be a writer and he was really terrible and he never made a career out of it, but he was a soda jerk in the 30s, and boy, wasn't that what took him off. And so I'll be like, oh, what did he write? And then I'll find the first print of his first book, and then this is the guy that invented Mountain Dew. And that's kind of how I function. If I hear a song that I like, I want to know more about it. If I see a book or a movie, and that's, I mean, man, you can learn so much about like American history just by asking these types of questions. And it all starts with, what do I enjoy? What do I want to know more about?
Absolutely. So we do have a question here. So Chris says, what is the absolute grail that you have to have added to your collection? So let's start with, what's your absolute grail that you have now, and then maybe something that you're still trying to get.
I showed it off last time, but it doesn't stop it from being true. It is a very hard book to find. It is my favorite book that I own. Adventure Comics 210, first appearance of Crypto the Superdog. I absolutely love Crypto. Look at that. God damn, I love him so much. This is my holy grail. When I got back into collecting, that was my first priority. I want Crypto. The number one book I'm going for now, I'm not going for it right now. I'm going into a spending freeze this year while my wife and I finalize the money that we're the final push of like us getting our down payment for a house. We already have an incredible amount of money, but now it's like, this is the final push. One more year of saving. But it's More Fun Comics 101. First appearance of Jor-El. Most importantly, first appearance of Superboy. And so then I will have my quadrology complete, which is first appearance of Crypto, huge character in Superboy and Superman mythos, specifically Superboy. He was always showing up in Adventure Comics. First Supergirl, which you already saw a moment ago. And this is my most recent pickup. Adventure Comics 247 first.
Yeah.
I love the
cartoon when I was a kid I loved it, man.
Dude, they were,
I agree with you.
Legion, people forget this. Old heads know this, and I love talking to old heads. But like the old collectors from like 1960s, the kids that are now older who were as children buying these comic books. Legion of Superheroes in the late 60s and all the way up to the 80s, they were the number one book. Like, people look now at like, oh man, if I was alive during the Silver Age of Marvel, dude, it was Legion. Legion was outselling everybody. And so that's why is it you go to a dollar bin and you see like 90s books and Legion, because they printed the tits off them. They made so many. But the Legion is just such a sick story. It's such a sick group of characters. And it was X-Men before X-Men knew what X-Men was. A lot of X-Men, bit off of, like Nightcrawler, historically, if you didn't know this, Nightcrawler was supposed to be a Legion character. But that Len Wein left DC and he went to Marvel, and he took it with him. Same thing with Storm is effectively just Lightning Lad. There's a bunch of those characters. Pharaoh Lad is Colossus, so on and so forth.
Chris says his absolute most are AF-15 and TMNT #1, the first print.
Jesus, for me, there goes your house.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. Like, for the book, I have a couple of big books, but Tech 31 I have, that's probably my biggest book that I own in my collection. That to me was like a book that I'd never thought I'd own, because there's like 100 on the census, and it was just happened to work out. I was traded for that book, believe it or not. So, but the book that I think that I would, my grail that I would want no matter what, is Action Comics 1, but it's never going to happen. I'm not a rich person. But it's just, how could you be a superhero fan and not want to own that book, right? I mean, I loved Superman when I was a kid. As you get older, you kind of fall out of that. You turn to the dark side. At least I did with Batman. But that would be special, owning that book. But it's just, so few people are going to be able to do that, and I'm not one of them.
I sleep better at night because I'm a huge Superman fan, enormous Superman fan. He means a lot to me. Go watch my most recent video. He means a lot to me. But I've made peace with the fact that I'll never own Action #1 by lying to myself, and not by rationalizing, I should say. because that's not the first appearance of Superman. That's the first appearance of the Golden Age Superman, who is a very specific character. And then in DC continuity, they very much establish that Golden Age Superman is from Earth 2. That's why he looks the way he is. That's why he's older. He is older in the continuity later on. He ages. And the Superman that we know, if you go to your local comic book store today and pick up any issue of Superman, Justice League, whatever, that Superman's first appearance was Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yes.
So they're very different characters. When I hear people say like I'm a huge Superman fan, I almost like internally have to clarify which one do you mean? Because it's almost like saying I'm a Spider-Man fan when they're talking about Miles Morales, but you're talking about Peter Parker.
It's just an icon of, you're talking about American history. Superman is just an icon of American history. So I think that's any collector who's a fan of heroes would want to own that book.
Well, what you can own though, and it's really fun, and you should. It's been reprinted to death. You can get it on Amazon for $10. It's called Gladiator. It was the book that inspired Siegel and Schuster to create Superman. It is a science fiction-y fantasy book that came out in the early 30s that had a boy born in the Midwest with super strength and superpowers with a maw and a paw, and he leaves to go find his fortune, and he has his life and he has his conversations with God, and it's a really short book, but it's a really good book. It's called Gladiator. Look it up.
See, guys, look at all the information you're getting from Ricky, man. Unbelievable. That's awesome. So wait, Danny says he's finally getting his Grail soon. So yes, he is.
Which one? Which one did I miss it?
It's AF-15. AF-15 is his Grail. So he mentioned this because if you guys don't know and you're hunting for a Grail, I offer a payment plan service. So for anybody out there who's watching this, that Danny is using, where we agree on a price of a book that he's looking. And if I'm able to, I buy the book and he pays me off as long as it takes him to do it, or anybody, as long as it takes you need to do it within, we agree upon time ahead of time. And I only get a very, very small percentage of a fee, and that's it. But I allow other collectors to be able to purchase books that they never thought they would have, as long as they are, want to take that route, because there are dealers out there who don't take payment plans. So whether it's a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it is, there are a few hiccups here and there. It's only for US people right now. And the other thing is I have to be comfortable paying what I pay for the book. So in case I get stiffed, I need to have some equity in the book where I know I could turn around and sell it. So, but
what's
again,
what's the grade he's getting?
1.5.
Oh, perfect.
I actually have it here, but that's up to Danny if he wants me to show it or not. I don't have to, but it's a nice looking copy of the book. 100%.
I mean, they're all nice. They're all nice. I actually just met a guy who had a coverless copy, and he had it in his collection. He has a complete Spider-Man collection. He has every single. His collection is so complete. He started. I'll send you the video, Lawrence. It's a private video. I was in some dude's house. That's why I'm not like throwing it online. But I'll send it to you, Lawrence. He has every single appearance of Spider-Man in all media in his house, to the point where now he's going after like foreign reprints, so that he can have every appearance of Spider-Man ever.
So it's funny you say that. I went to a show, the one I was talking about a couple weeks ago, and there was a guy there who had a ton of like other foreign reprints of major keys. Amazing Spider-Man 129, Amazing Spider-Man 1, like an Italian version, Luo Ragno. And I've been looking for an AF-15, an Italian version, but they're expensive, man. They ain't cheap. It came out like in the 70s. It is not cheap, but they're very cool if you're a Spider-Man fan.
Well, so I think the reason why they're not cheap is because to us it's like, oh, that's neat, but to a child who grew up in Italy, that is the first appearance of Spider-Man. Like, American comics be damned, that one is the one. So I can imagine, like, although here they're kind of kitschy for us, for an Italian child that's now an adult, that's the one that he has to have.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, it's very, like you said, it's neat for us, but I'm sure someone who growing up where that was his AF-15, that's the one he wants. So, all right. I think that's it, man. I appreciate you coming on. You were the only one to hop on this thing, even though I opened it up to everyone else. I really appreciate you. And again, all your knowledge is always appreciated because I learn things every time that we talk. So please stay in touch. I know I'm going to see you at Terrificon, but let's talk before then.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime.
All right. So, guys, if you're not subbed up to Ricky, do yourself a favor. Please go ahead and sub him up. You guys are definitely missing out. He puts out some amazing content. So, hopefully, I'll go on your channel. I think I was on there once already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. We did a live show together. So, hopefully, I'll hop back on there soon with you. But again, thank you for coming on, and everyone out there in the chat. We really appreciate you guys. Happy 4th of July, by the way. Forgot to say
America.
that. Rudolph.